Hi, how you doing? Justin here. Welcome to lesson 9 of the Blues Rhythm Guitar series, and in this lesson today we are going to be talking about turnarounds. Now, a turnaround is the last 2 bars of a 12-bar blues, and there are lots of different kind of chord progressions you can use to turn the song around so it goes around again. Now, sometimes it's predetermined, so specific songs have a particular turnaround that is being used. That happens most times. Other times the band kind of get together and decide, hey, in this one we're going to use this. And other times, if it's a bit on the fly, you have to be listening out to the bass player, or the bass player has to be listening to you to try and suss out what turnaround is going to happen. It's a lot more fun when it's kind of a bit more up in the air and you don't know what's going to happen. It can make for some interesting notes happening. But if you're aware of all of the different turnarounds, you'll probably start to pick up, oh, it feels like it's going to be this one, or it sounds like, or the first chord is this one, so it's got to be this particular turnaround. So that's the idea here. For the backing track, I've picked 5 of the common turnarounds and done them in succession. So I'm going to show you those 5 first, then I'm going to show you a few others as well, just in a close-up, and show you some different ways that you might approach playing them. As part of the blues lead guitar course, there's also a lesson on turnarounds, because very often the turnaround is kind of hosted, if you like, by the lead guitar player. They play the melodic part that really says, yeah, we're going to turn around, or yeah, we're going to end the tune. So it's important to check that lesson out as well. And be aware that sometimes there isn't a turnaround as well. There are quite a few tunes with the blues chord sequence I call the long one, which is where the last 2 bars of a 12-bar blues sequence just play the 1 chord for the whole 2 bars. In that case, it's usually down to the drummer to make some sort of fill thing that says, hey, we're finishing the tune and going back around again. And there's quite often that happens. Don't think that it's uncommon for there to be not a turnaround, but it is probably more common for there to be one, and that's why we're going to do this lesson. That's enough rambling from me. Let's get to a close-up and check out how to play some. The lesson today is going to be based in the key of D. So just to refresh your memory, we've got D here is the 1 chord, G at the 3rd fret there is the 4 chord, and A at the 5th fret, 6th string root, of course, is the 5 chord. Playing through a regular blues, just so you're 100% sure where the turnaround is. Now there's the bit always here with the 5 chord to the 4 chord, and now is where the turnaround is. So there's what I'm going to be showing you now are things to go at this point in the blues, the last 2 bars of a 12-bar blues. Now, one of the most common is just to put the 5 chord at the end for 2 beats. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. So just literally that, and 4, and 1. Again, the last 2 bars of the blues in D. 3, 4 is D, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it can just move over just for those, 2 beats. The last 2 beats of the whole sequence just moves over to the 5 chord, and then we're back to the 1 chord right away. This is really common, particularly like earlier blues stuff. It's probably more common than any other one. So be aware of that one first of all. Now the second one, the second in the sequence for the backing track, is a little climber, which is again really, really popular. It happens in the 2nd bar of our 2-bar sequence. So we have 1 bar of regular D. The 2nd bar goes, I'm sure you've heard that before. It's a really, really common little sequence again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. It doesn't always have to be with a chunker thing, by the way. It could be. You could use little. Those little 9th chords, you can do all sorts of things. I'm just using a chunker as an example, but you could use any different type of sequence that we've been looking at so far to get a little 2-note thing, if you want. There's really infinite number of ways of using each of these different things. So that's the one I normally call it the climb. are we going to put a climb at the end in the turnaround? Would be the kind of thing that you'd ask your bass player. So that would be a little climb. Now the third one we've got here is a kind of a variation on the two really. It's one where we go 1, 4, 1, 5. And then we're starting the sequence again. This is again a very, very common little sequence. 1, 4, 1, 5. Could be played. Or you know, again, loads of different ways. All the same thing, you know, just as long as it's 1, 4, 1, 5. I'd recommend most of these ones just to doing a regular chunker, just to get used to what the chord changes are, you know. That's a nice easy way of looking at it to start off with. Then worry about kind of jazzing all of the chords up as if you like that kind of style. So the next one, which is number 4, is what's called a 1-6-2-5. Again, this has kind of got its roots in jazz, I guess. You kind of get this kind of effect, but it does happen even in a chunker. It does happen like that, you know, using a regular kind of blues progressions. So this one, what it is the 1, 6, 2, 5 of the scale. Now you know that our blues so far is just 1, 4 and 5. Well, if that's 4, 5, there's 6, right? If that's 1, there's 2. So that's where you can think 1, 6, 2, 5. Again, make sure that you check out, I'm sure you're going to already, because I know that you're conscientious about making sure that you get everything with your 5th string root and 6th string root, aren't you? So make sure that you figure out where 1, 6, 2, 5 is going to be if we started up here. 1, 6, 2, 5, or 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Yeah, you might recognize that I talked about in the little lesson where we were looking at the little mini grips. So that's another really, really common sequence that you might want to try out. And the last one I'm showing you is a 1 flat 3 2 flat 2 sequence, which is kind of a little chromatic thing. There's some fancier reasons to do with chord substitution that we can get into at another time. But for now, I think you should just worry about doing it, kind of keeping it simple and playing 1, move up 3 frets, back 1, and then we're back at the middle. And you can use either chords. That kind of thing if you're doing a chords, or it could be you know, it can be chunker again. All of these things, they can be fancy chords or they can be a regular like little dyad power chord chunker thing, whatever you want to do. You know, it's important that you explore all of those different ideas. It's not just one thing or the other. So that's all of the ones that are used on the backing track. Remember, there are charts on the website which will help you remember the order of them on the backing track and exactly what chords are in what one. So I'd highly recommend that you go to the website and check that out. It really will make life a lot easier for you. But there are some other kind of turnarounds that I think are pretty common and I think sound pretty cool. Couldn't fit them all on the backing track, so I thought I'd show them to you anyway, and you can apply them to other backing tracks from this series or just jam around with them with your mates or whatever. So the first one is kind of this descending line, often played by a bass player, but it sounds pretty cool on guitar as well. And that's just these notes. You could play it as power chords as well if you want. All we're doing is starting with the root note, moving down a tone, and then chromatically down to the 5 chord, which in this key is the key of A. I know you're going to do your homework and transfer it over to the 6th string root stuff as well and figure out how to play each one. Of course, you could move down a tone but move to the C here. So from C to D, instead go C to sorry, D to C. This is a really, really common little sequence. Like I said, often the guitar will just do this, and the bass player will have the dum bum bum ba dum bum, that kind of thing, you know. But I think it's a cool. So that's the first one of the extras. Now the second one is just playing the chord. Now I know this, it's like, well, what do you mean? That's pretty easy. But if you get like a real... Often if it's a chunker thing, you know, a chunker, you've got an extra chunker in there. If you're doing this kind of thing and it gets to the 5 chord, you don't really always want to have to keep going with your chunkers. You might just end up playing the chord, as I'm going to do when we get to the chunker in this bit here. Just move it just for that one bit. Going to the full chord, you know. If you've got a 5th string root, you might use a 9th chord, or you might have used a 9th chord here with the 6th string root. Up to you, of course, and that's part of the game, is your choices on this. But I think it's important to realise that that can actually be kind of a valid turnaround, is just switching from doing this kind of thing into a bit of a strummy thing on a chord. It can sound pretty funky, I reckon. So that's a good one. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is a kind of, it's related to this line going down them. Because often the bass will go up. And this is what I was going to show you. Just because I think it sounds cool. From the D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then we're on the A. D. So we've just got here first finger on the 4th fret, little finger on the 7th fret, which is the root note. Use whatever fingers you like there. It seems to be that I change depending on what day it is. So experiment with that. Of course, the same idea, as long as you get little finger on the root note, the same idea will work fine up here. So you could have... You know, you can have it up there too. So I think that's a pretty funky little number, a little bit more kind of interesting than your standard one. There's one even more interesting idea that I'm going to share with you on this to explore on your own. But the last one I want to go through with you properly is just a sharp 5 to the 5, which is a real common... Again, just doing a chord and moving it from if there's the 5 chord, you just go up 1 fret and back down again. And off you go. Now the last idea is quite a biggie, and I just want to explain the kind of the idea to you and then let you run around with it a little bit. So the first thing is to realize that we had this descending line, which worked in a turnaround to get to A7. Then we also saw that we had this ascending line. Well, what would happen if you did the two together? So if you hear, one went up, one went down, and then this one continues going down, this one continues going up, and that one continues going up, we end up with this really cool idea called contrary motion. And this idea, I think, is a real funky one. There's one of my favourite little pet licks for one going down, one going up. I really like the sound of that. So just as a little idea, why don't you see how many different ways you can figure out of playing this, having one line going down, which would be the notes D, C, B, B, flat leading to A, and the other one going D up to F sharp, G, G sharp, A. It's just a fun little game for yourselves to play. Is a little exercise on the guitar. It could keep you occupied for an afternoon and give you some really, really cool, fun licks. Like with nearly everything on guitar, the most important thing here is to put it into practice. So make sure that you muck around with each of the different turnarounds, get as many of them as you can to memory, and most importantly, make sure that you can play all of the ones I've shown you with the 6-string root. At the moment, we've just done them all in the 5th string root, and I'm not going to show you the 6-string root ones. I want you to try and figure them all out. It's not difficult, and it's something that you really, if it is difficult, you need to sort that out and make sure that you learn how to do it so it's not difficult anymore. It's something I think is an essential kind of bit of your knowledge that you need to fill in if you can't do that. And the other really important thing to do at this stage as well is to listen a lot to some blues and make sure you can spot the different turnarounds. You know, get some great blues records that you like, some Muddy Waters or Stones or Howlin' Wolf or whatever, and check out the different turnarounds and start to go, oh, he's used that turnaround there, and see, do they do the same turnaround throughout the whole song, and does it make it part of the song? And that's a really good way as well of developing your repertoire a bit and making sure that you learn the kind of the correct chord progressions for each different 12-bar blues, because I don't know, when I was growing up, I always just thought, oh, it's a 12-bar blues and they're all the same and you can kind of do what you like. But as I kind of studied it a bit more, I found, well, actually, no, that's not the case at all. They're quite distinct, you know, and the guys that copped it real good, whether it's Stevie Ray Vaughan or the Rolling Stones or whatever, any of the kind of the more modern white guitar players, if you listen to them play older songs, you hear that they've really absorbed it properly. They've learned exactly what the chord progressions are and the right way it was played. Probably my favorite example is the Rolling Stones playing Little Red Rooster. If you find the original version of that one, which I think is a Howlin' Wolf one, there's kind of a mistake in the chord where the bass kind of doesn't go to the chord at the same time and then the whole band jumps over. And they've copied that in their version. I just thought, for a long time I thought it was a mistake, but it's not. They copped it and they learned it really, really well. So let me play you out with the backing track. Remember, the chart is on the website. That's going to make it a lot easier for you if you use that. And I'll see you for another lesson very soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.